There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door.
Well, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide you heavenly gates and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, said, "Behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven. And I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, Come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place." That's what we need, my friends. To get a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us. The things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass. Those things which must take place. Those things which are taking place, even now. That is what this broadcast is all about. Discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good day, everybody. Andy White here. And, of course, what you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain. Hello, everybody, and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors, and I am streaming live, of course, over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page over at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. If you've never liked the page, go on over there to facebook.com/faithfm91.7. Like my Open Up the Doors page. Let me know where you are watching from, where you are listening from. Give me some of those emoji thumbs up. Let me know that you are seeing this, that you are viewing this, and that you are engaged with it all. God, I just appreciate every one of you over there on Facebook. You guys are so faithful that come in and sit with me week after week. We are streaming across the internet via our Faith FM app as well, besides the Facebook stream. You can get the Faith FM app at your respective app dealer, both for the Android platform as well as the Apple platform. Just look up Faith FM in Sag Harbor and you will find us. If you want to write the phone number to call in the second hour, I will be going to the phones. 631-725-2069, 631-725-2069, if you would like to be part of today's broadcast, and I would love for you to be part of it. So give me a call in the second hour when I do go to the phones. In the meantime, I got a lot to get to, so I'm going to get to it. And let me begin this way. It's going to be a little bit of a, I don't know how much of a different broadcast. Going to be really focused on a topic here that's really been brought to light in the past week or so. But about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, whose actual birth name is Ahmed Hussein al-Sharaa, was one of the world's most wanted terrorists, hunted by America with a $10 million bounty on his head. Today, he is the president of Syria, and this past Monday, he was in the Oval Office having a meeting with President Trump. He had his U.S. terrorist designation and the $10 million bounty that was on his head. It was lifted earlier this year. To say that this has raised a lot of eyebrows would be an understatement. To say this has raised a lot of concerns, and legitimately so, would be superfluous. How does a jihadist terrorist, namely Ahmed Sharaa, who had, as I said a moment ago, a $10 million bounty on his head from the U.S., how does he go from having this bounty on his head to having a handshake and a meeting with President Trump, both back in earlier this year at the UN in March, but more importantly, more importantly, meeting at the White House with Donald Trump, having the U.S. lifting sanctions on Syria and urging Sharaa, a.k.a. Al-Jilani, urging him to join the Abraham Accords. This past Monday, on the eve of Veterans Day, which raised a lot of ire amongst veterans, but this past Monday, over the Veterans holiday weekend, President Trump hosted Syrian President Ahmed Sharaa at the White House for it was an historic meeting, friends. It was an historic meeting on multiple levels. It was the first ever visit by a Syrian head of state since Syria's independence in 1946. This was no minor thing. This was a big thing that I think in a lot of ways flies under the radar for most Americans who just really aren't paying attention to these things. But Al-Sharaa is a former, supposedly, former. I'm going to get into some of the shenanigans here as the program progresses. But Al-Sharaa is a former Al-Qaeda leader who led the rebel group that ousted Bashar al-Assad in late 2024. It's only been about a year since Assad regime was overthrown by Al-Sharaa. And the talks at the White House this past week focused on Syria joining the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS. Oh, this is palace intrigue to the max. It really is, in a lot of ways. So I developed this character sketch for those of you who might not be familiar with Abu Muhammad al-Jilani. That was his ISIS name. Yeah, this guy used to be part of ISIS. Now he's supposedly joining a U.S.-led coalition against ISIS. To say I'm skeptical would be an understatement. But this is what they talked about in the Oval Office this weekend. Also about extending the sanctions relief under the Caesar Act for another 180 days because Congress has put Al-Sharaa under sanctions, but again, they're being lifted. And they were discussing, and I'm going to get into this maybe in the second hour, if I get there. But they also discussed the possibility of putting a U.S. military base in Syria, in Damascus. Yeah, that's a twist in the script. And of course, Trump is pushing for normalization of ties with Israel. Trump, in his Trumpian sort of way, actually, he said this a couple of times. He said this back in I think it was March, when he first met Sharaa. It might have been in September. That might have been in September at the UN General Assembly, actually, now that I think about it. But Trump has described Al-Sharaa as, quote-unquote, a very strong leader. Yeah, you could say he was. It's a terrorist. Trump called him, he has a tough past. Yeah. He was on the most wanted terrorist list with a $10 million bounty on his head. I would say it was a tough past. But Trump went on to pledge U.S. support to make Syria successful. Oh, I'm telling you, folks, every eschatological cell in my body is exploding. Not because I think things are going to happen tomorrow, but because there's a trend line going on here, as I've been talking about for years. There's a setting up of the chess pieces on the chessboard of God's eschatological blueprint. But that the timing overlapped with Veterans Day observances, as I said a moment ago, it drew scrutiny because of Al-Sharaa's past role in attacks. This is the guy that was responsible for killing American troops, both in Iraq and Syria. And the fact that the meeting with Sharaa was held over the Veterans Day weekend didn't sit well with some of our military leaders and our vets either. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the VFW. But they issued a statement on Veterans Day on Tuesday, expressing quote-unquote profound disappointment over the lack of consultation with service member families, and with VFW National Commander Kirk Roberts saying, quote, while we support pragmatic diplomacy, I'm going to come to a stop here before I finish out his quote. This guy's a commander. He's the commander, the national commander of the VFW. He's a vet. So he understands pragmatic diplomacy. And maybe some of you would just chalk all of this stuff up with those two words. It's just pragmatic diplomacy. Maybe Donald Trump is just doing the old, the old Godfather routine of keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. Maybe that's what he's doing. But there's a lot of other things going on here that, as much as you like to try and put this and squeeze this in the box of pragmatic diplomacy, I'm just relating to you how this was taken by a lot of military people. So again, to quote the VFW National Commander Kirk Roberts, he said, while we support pragmatic diplomacy, this holiday is sacred. I mean, this guy was at the Oval Office on the eve of Veterans Day, the holiday weekend. And he went on to say, honoring Veterans Day is meant to honor the 58,000 plus lost in Vietnam and the countless others who have been lost in the Middle East wars. Really, it's all wars, but I'm just quoting what he said. And he says the optics of this meeting between Sharaa and Trump undermine that sacrifice. A lot of vets have felt this way. On X post, formerly Twitter, from military veterans all over, they were echoing this. One viral thread went out from former Congressman Ron Paul. Many of you might remember Congressman Ron Paul, the father of Rand Paul. But he called this meeting, quote-unquote, insanity, especially highlighting al-Sharaa's al-Qaeda past as a direct affront to troops killed by his networks. And, again, I support most of what Donald Trump does, but sometimes you just really got to scratch your head. I mean, okay, you want to do pragmatic diplomacy with Sharaa, I get it. You want to try and you want to try and put together some peace agreements, and I get it, but you can't be tone deaf either. To meet with this guy on Veterans Day, it really, with all due respect, President Trump, it was a little tone deaf. It really was. Because when known as, under his ISIS name, Ahmed Sharaa, as I said, Ahmed Sharaa is his real name, it's his birth name, but when the caliphate was created, all these Islamists took on names of the patron saints of Islam, so to speak. So when he was fighting alongside al-Qaeda and ISIS, he was known as Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani. Again, he was a terrorist with al-Qaeda, including the Islamic State of Iraq. And this guy, Sharaa, and I've talked about this in the past. This isn't the first time I'm talking about Sharaa. I've talked about him at least, 3 or 4 times already. But this is an important point here of where I'm going with all of this. This guy, Sharaa, was mentored and raised up by the ISIS leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who declared himself the caliph of the ISIS, the caliph of the caliphate, the Islamic State. He declared himself the caliph on June 29th, 2014, when he announced the official establishment of the caliph that was supposed to be the rebirth of the Ottoman Empire in his mind, and in the minds of others, especially Erdogan for that matter. But Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi formally adopted the name of Caliph Ibrahim. Ibrahim was actually his real name. And demanded, this is so important, because this is Islamic Sharia law, all Muslims must declared their allegiance to the Caliph worldwide, the entire Ummah. So he demanded the oath of allegiance on June 29th, 2014, from all the Muslim worldwide. Remember, at that time, al-Jilani was like in this guy's orbit. He was being mentored by him. I found this interesting. Al-Baghdadi's first sermon as the Caliph of the Islamic State. I didn't know the date until I was doing my background research for this broadcast. But his first public appearance as Caliph, and I know this was purposeful. His first public appearance with a fiery speech from the Grand Mosque in Mosul, Iraq. Oh, this is pregnant with prophetic foreshadowings. Mosul is ancient Nineveh. Scripturally speaking, in fact, it's Nahum, I believe it's Nahum chapter 1, 2, chapter 2, 1. I can't remember the address. It's in Nahum. But it talks about the wicked one, a type of the Antichrist, the wicked one coming out of Nineveh, the Assyrian. It's one of those passages in Nahum that a lot of people seem to overlook when they talk about the Antichrist. I'm digressing, but I want to connect some dots. Because al-Baghdadi, after declaring himself the Caliph of the Caliphate, he delivered his first speech from the Grand Mosque in, for all intents and purposes, Nineveh on July 4th, 2014. Now, I remember the incidents. I remember the pictures. I didn't remember the date. I am fully confident that he picked that date on purpose. July 4th. So here is some of the background. So now, this past Monday, his disciple, Ahmed Hussein al-Sharaa, was seen playing basketball and shooting hoops alongside senior U.S. military figures, including CENTCOM Chief Admiral Brad Cooper. Something very strange is going on here, my friends. Oh, I don't know how strange, really. Something very prophetic and nuances are going on here. Sharaa, to be fair, and I'm not going to be very fair because to me this is the ultimate game of taqiyya. Sharaa has claimed, allegedly, to have distanced himself from Al-Qaeda and ISIS, except remember that he did pledge allegiance to his leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. But he's claiming that he's reformed. Except things that are going on in Syria right now and for the past year, which seem to suggest otherwise. See, folks, right now, Christians and Druze and other minorities are dying and being slaughtered at the hands of jihadists in Syria. And just like the government in Nigeria, I talked about the persecution in Nigeria just last week, but just like the Nigerian government, al-Sharaa's government isn't doing anything to stop the slaughter. Now, Trump designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, and yet he's embracing al-Sharaa's Syrian government. Something doesn't smell right in Denmark, or should I say Damascus. The UN Sanctions Committee still has him listed as QDI.317, an Al-Qaeda terrorist. The UN Sanctions Committee still has Sharaa listed as an Al-Qaeda terrorist right now as I speak. Al-Jilani was added to the terrorist sanction list on July 24th, 2013 for his association with Al-Qaeda in Iraq and the Jihadist, and it goes on blah, 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 and of course Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. As of November 2025, the UN designation remains active, subjecting him to an assets-free travel ban and arms embargo, though they've given him temporary exemptions for humanitarian and diplomatic travel. He went to Geneva. He went to the UN General Assembly back last September. So they're waiving his terrorist status. They're waiving the sanctions so that he can go play footsies with the UN and with the U.S. government. The United Nations Security Council voted in favor of a U.S. resolution a few months ago so that Sharaa could come here without being sanctioned and whatnot. So the question is this, my friends, before I go to a break. Is this diplomacy or a game of taqiyya at the highest level? Ahmed Sharaa's resume of terror. I've already spoken on it, but there's a list here. He was in Al-Qaeda from 2003 to 2006. He ambushed U.S. soldiers. He built roadside bombs. He honed his terrorist craft under Zarqawi's insurgency. And he also helped to radicalize U.S. Other terrorists against the U.S. He was part of the Islamic State, a prodigy of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi from 2006 to 2012. Laying the groundwork for the ISIS caliphate. He was handpicked by al-Baghdadi to expand jihad into Syria. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, can a leper change its spots? There's a principle in Islam of war. War is deceit, Islam teaches. And taqiyya is part of it. He formed, after the caliphate fell apart, he formed the terrorist group Jabhat al-Nusra, which was founded and commanded by Sharaa. And after that was kind of taken apart, he formed Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and it is a sham, in 2017 to the present. He rebranded the terrorist group al-Nusra into HTS, which I've talked about before, and they're in the back pocket of Erdogan of Turkey. From an Al-Qaeda emir to a UN speaker in under a year. From America's most wanted to America's guest of honor. Something very strange is at work, if you ask me. I think it's a game of taqiyya. I'll be back with more.
I've been trying so hard
right after this tune by Grace Coleman.
but little did I know
Keep it right here. I'll be back.
I just needed the sunshine and let love get the heavy work done.
That was Grace Coleman with a tune called Let the Sun Shine. Welcome back. Andy White here on the radio, tearing down strongholds. You are listening to Open Up the Doors, Integrity in Broadcasting here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in Napeague, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. So I've been using the term taqiyya a couple of times in this broadcast. It's something I've talked about many, many times over the course of the last 11 years. It's been a little bit of a while, so maybe some of you are new listeners. Maybe some of you don't even know what the term means. So I'm going to just do a little bit of a refreshing of what taqiyya is in Islam. It's Islamic sanctioned deception. Taqiyya is Islamic sanctioned deception. The concept of taqiyya, or religious dissimulation, is linked to a verse in the Quran, Surah 328, which states that believers, that would be Muslims, should not take disbelievers as allies. unless it's a precaution against their tyranny. I'll read the whole surah for the sake of context out of the Quran. The believers may not take the unbelievers for their allies in preference to those who believe. Whoever does this has nothing to do with Allah unless he does so in order to protect himself from their wrongdoing. Allah warns you to beware of him, for it is to him, Allah, that you will return. Point being, especially in the Arabic, the Arabic words in this verse are derived from the same root word as taqiyya, and it's interpreted as permission for Muslims to outwardly show friendship to unbelievers, infidels, non-Muslims, only when they fear for their safety, although their true belief must be maintained inwardly. I was thinking about this the other day. Once again, the opposite of what Jesus said. Muhammad was basically saying, hey, listen, you can deny the faith to protect yourself or to advance the faith. Whereas Jesus said, if anyone denies me in front of man, he'll deny them in front of the Father. But I digress a little bit. But some of the Islamic scholars, and these are the ones you got to go by, important Islamic scholars like Ibn Taqiyya have interpreted this to mean it is permissible for believers to outwardly associate with disbelievers for the sake of prudence. Oh, it's wise that I lie. It's wise that I obfuscate the truth. Abu al-Darda, who's considered one of the companions, he was one of the companions of Muhammad. And by the way, a companion of Muhammad equates basically to the apostles and disciples of Jesus. So they're held in high regard. So the companion to Muhammad, Abu al-Darda, is quoted as saying, quote, we smile in the face of some people, although our hearts curse them. This is his commentary on Surah 328, illustrating the outward lying and dissimulation described in the verse. Abu al-Darda, this apostle, if you will, of Muhammad, he is respected. He is one of the highest leading authorities and teachers of the Quran. Of course, he's dead. But his hadiths, his teachings go on. But we smile in the face of some people, although our hearts curse them. The moment I read that, I thought of the proverb. Proverbs 24:26. He who hates disguises it with his lips and lays up deceit within himself. When he speaks kindly, do not believe him, for there are 7 abominations in his heart, though his hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness will be revealed before the assembly. I'm saying all that to say this. Should we trust the new Syrian president? I certainly don't. Oh, I remember saying I was going to just comment on a couple of these comments here on the Facebook. Brother Fred wanted to ask the question with regard to Trump's timing meeting with the new Syrian leader. Was there any response from the White House about the timing? Fred, I don't know. There might have been, but nothing that I'm aware of. I didn't hear anything from the press secretary or read anything about him responding to those who were kind of griping about the timing. So I don't know, to answer your question there. And another place, you mentioned that as flawed as Trump may be, and we're all flawed, he's not as dumb as I look. Well, I'll leave that there. And no, you're right. I mean, I don't think Trump is dumb. I don't think Trump is naive. Sometimes, I'll tell you one thing. I've said this in the past. There are some things I don't know how to evaluate with him, because he does some things that definitely seem, especially when it comes to the Mideast, when it comes to Erdogan, when it's coming to Sharaa, things that seem really extremely naive, or he doesn't understand. And I absolutely do believe that he doesn't understand. I don't believe much of the Western leadership, both military, not all, but some, at least those who are really creating policy, I don't really believe they understand the depths of Islam. I simply don't. And having said all of that, no matter what's going on, we know that the Lord is using it to further his agenda, to further his eschatological blueprint. So no matter what the issue is regarding Trump's machinations with these jihadists and these Islamic leaders, the bottom line is this: we know that God is the one who's really in control of the situation and utilizing it for his purpose. So, but here's the thing: the practice of taqiyya explains, and this is why I don't trust, why I wouldn't trust Jolani, Sharaa, as far as you can throw them. Because the practice of taqiyya explains why the de-radicalization programs in prisons are failing. All of these terrorists who have been released, especially from Israel and even some from America or Europe, they take part in these de-radicalization programs, but they're pretending to change their views in order to game the system. Taqiyya. But the minute, so the outcome is they play the game of taqiyya, and then their prison time is reduced, and they're released, and the recidivism rate is through the roof. They rejoin the jihad, plain and simple, because this whole thing is it's Islamic teaching, precept, philosophy. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said a few months back that Syrian leader Ahmed Sharaa wants peace with Israel. I don't believe that for a second. And the reason I don't believe that is because of the actions that are going on in Syria. He's saying one thing with his mouth, but he's still acting in Syria like the jihadist that he was, with the persecution of the Druze and the minorities and the Christians. And Rubio says that Sharaa wants peace with Israel, yet one of Jolani's men on video is heard sharing and offering advice on how to act towards Israel. In a video, he says that they need to employ the Hudaybiyah agreement, something else I've talked about many, many times. The Hudaybiyah agreement strategy. Let's use that against Israel. It's Hudna. It's a fake peace treaty. Two things you need to understand, my friends, about Islam and the principles of war in Islam is, number one, is the law of taqiyya, which means lying and deception. It means that a Muslim man can lay his hand on the Quran and swear that he's telling the truth, knowing he is lying, but also knowing that the Quran will forgive him because he is advancing the cause of Islam. The second thing you need to know about the Islamic doctrine of war is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which is an Islamic principle of war and a model on how to deceive your enemy when you sign a peace treaty with your enemy so that you could reestablish your strength. It's based on the historical example of Muhammad. Muhammad was attacking the Quraysh tribe when he was living in Medina. But when he realized he wasn't strong enough to defeat the Quraysh, he signed a 10-year treaty with them that said he would not attack them. He said he would not declare war on them. The Hudaybiyah agreement was a tactical ceasefire proposed by Muhammad to the Quraysh tribe for 10 years, as I said. During this time, Muhammad leveraged the truce to spread Islam and ideologically conquered the region. Muhammad used the treaty for 2 years to build his military and to strengthen his army. And when he realized that he was strong enough, he betrayed the Quraysh by tricking them to break a clause in the agreement Therefore, Muhammad broke the treaty and attacked them when they least expected it. He slaughtered the Quraysh, and Mecca fell within 24 hours because they were not expecting the attack, and Muhammad took over Mecca. And ever since that time, the strategy has become a principle of war in Islam, the Hudaybiyah Agreement. It serves as a model of diplomatic deceit for strategic concessions, given that Islam forbids, that's why I read Surah 328, Islam forbids genuine peace agreements with infidels. This doesn't change. Why is this important? Before I go to another break. Why does any of this matter? Because it talks about types and foreshadowings and trend lines, as I've talked about so often on this broadcast. One of the names, one of the designations for the Antichrist, he's called the Assyrian. The Bible tells us where the little horn is going to come from. That little horn that sprouts up from obscurity into prominence through intrigue and through cunning, culminating in a covenant that ultimately will be broken because it was entered into with deceptive intent. In other words, the ultimate game of Taqiyya, the ultimate Hudaybiyah agreement, which the Bible calls a covenant with death in Isaiah 28:14 through 15, and the covenant that will be confirmed in Daniel 9:27. I'm not saying that's happening right now. I'm not even saying that Al-Jaloni is the Antichrist. I'm not even going there right now. What I'm saying is that there are types and foreshadowings and a trend line, as I said. The table is being set, my friends, for the ultimate game of Taqiyya. I'm going to take another break with some closing thoughts for this first hour when I come back. Here's Alvin Slaughter. We give you thanks. Keep it right here, and I'll be back.
Say hallelujah!
The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in Napeague, and WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. Just a couple of quick broadcast memos. The first hour of this broadcast re-airs today at 3 p.m. Today's Thursday. And on Saturday, it re-airs at 1 p.m. That's the normal scheduling of the show. Today at 3, a re-air, and Saturday at 1, a re-air. If you miss any part of the show, you'd like to share it around, inform people, help the broadcast audience grow, you can find me on my YouTube and Rumble channels. Just look up Andy White, Open Up the Doors, either on YouTube or Rumble. Please subscribe to either and or both if you haven't. Throw some thumbs up on some of the videos, share them around, get them exposed. We want to increase the audience and the outreach for the sake of informing people and preaching the gospel and keeping people informed about the things that we talked about here on Open Up the Doors. You can also find me on X at AJWhite77 or on Truth if you're on those platforms at AJ White. Again, you can follow me there. And I also have a group page on Truth Social as well. Andy White, Open Up the Doors. Of course. I do want to mention something here as well. I promised a friend of mine that I would mention this. Speaking of vets and speaking of this past weekend, Veterans Day, there's going to be a fundraising Thanksgiving dinner to bless our vets, it's called, this Sunday, November 16th, from 2 to 7 p.m., 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 p.m., a Bless Our Vets Thanksgiving fundraising dinner. It will be located at Jesus is Lord Church, 341 Long Island Avenue, Holtsville. That's Jesus is Lord Church, 341 Long Island Avenue, Holtsville. It's got to be RSVP. If you'd like to go to the Thanksgiving dinner and be blessed, to bless our vets, I think there's going to be some speakers there. You need to RSVP. The phone number to RSVP is 631-619-6100. 631-619-6100. Or you can email them at nyscf3@gmail.com. That's nyscf3@gmail.com. Again, a Bless Our Vets Thanksgiving dinner to be held this Sunday from 2 to 7. The call-in number, if you want to call in here during the 11 o'clock hour, I'll be going to the phones. The phone number is 631-725-2069. That's 631-725-2069. 2069. Okay, so let me see what I'm doing time-wise and what I want to say for the second hour. I got a lot of stuff here, a lot on the plate regarding the whole Syria thing, the whole Ahmed Sharaa, president of Syria thing. Some of the things we're working on as far as the U.S. and Syria. And personally, I just think it's a high stakes game of Taqiyya. Another report that I came across yesterday in the Gatestone Institute. The title was Iran Seeking to Revive the Axis of Resistance Against Israel. And the Gatestone Institute article goes on to say, although Iran's terror proxies have been weakened, namely Hezbollah and Hamas, they are trying to rise from the ashes with the help of their patrons in Tehran. No surprise there. But here's the thing that jumped out at me. As we are been talking about Taqiyya and the lying and the obfuscation and the Islamic principles of war, this is what leaped out at me. One of the things that leaped out at me from this article in my mind just went blank. Gatestone Institute. It was a statement by senior Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya. He says that the group will, quote, accumulate capabilities to move towards the liberation of Palestine. That statement contradicts remarks made by Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, who said that Hamas officials told him to his face, remember Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, which didn't last long enough for the ink to even dry. But remember, one of the points in the peace plan was Hamas's disarmament. But now, there was this conference in Beirut last week where this leader of Hamas, the newest leader, said this, that they're going to accumulate capabilities. That means rebuild their armaments. Remember the Hudaybiyah principle. You sign peace treaties and agreements for the sake of recouping, for the sake of re-strengthening. This is what they do for 1,400 years. And Witkoff said, well, they told me to my face that they were going to disarm. Well, imagine that, Mr. Witkoff. They lied. Taqiyya, as part of their effort to foil Trump's Gaza peace plan. As I said, they had this conference. And the Secretary General of this conference, the Secretary General, the Arab National Conference, somebody by the name of Hamdin Sabahai, rejected calls by the Trump administration and the Lebanese government to disarm the Palestinian terrorist groups, both Hezbollah and Hamas, which both have said they would disarm. Now they're saying, no, we're not, no, we're not, no, we're not. That would be something of an affront to the Arab nations. But check out this statement. I'm going to get to it, Brother Fred, in the Gatestone Institute. Check out this statement. I didn't think I was going to get to this till the second hour. But according to, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, Sabahai, or Sabihi, one of the outcomes of Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel is the victory in New York City's mayoral election of Zohran Mamdani, who declared his allegiance to Palestine. Folks, you think this stuff isn't connected? You think the mayoral race going on in New York, where this Islamic Marxist won, is not connected to the things in the Middle East? It most certainly is. CARE funded him. Again, as I shared a few weeks ago, there are reports of Mamdani's campaign receiving money from Qatar and from the United Arab Republics and others, foreign entities, which is illegal. But when I saw this statement, I was like, man, check this out. The Secretary General of the Arab National Conference is saying one of the successes of October 7th is the election of Zoran Mamdani. Let that sink in. I got a lot more here I'm going to get to in the second hour. Because I'm going to carry on the theme of this. But Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya said in a speech at that conference, which was that the October 7th massacres was a response to attempts to obliterate the Palestinian cause and build a new Middle East. He said October 7th registered as an epic heroism inside Palestine and its borders, when the nation participated, each according to its ability, that's Marx's statement, in supporting us. The Al-Aqsa flood, which was the name given by Hamas for the attack on October 7th, has been placed as a great duty to develop plans, accumulate capabilities to move forward and towards the liberation of Palestine. This statement that he just made a month ago, it contradicts everything that's been coming out of the White House through Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. Hamas has always indicated that they would disarm. They've said so, Steve Witkoff said. They said it to us directly during that famous meeting that Jared Kushner and I had with them. I hope they keep their word. I'll tell you something. I haven't been impressed with this guy, Steve Witkoff, really since day one. But I'm running out of time. I'm going to close out this first hour with what David said in the Psalm. David cried out in Psalm 144, verse 11. He said, "Rescue me and deliver me from the hand of foreigners, whose mouths speak lying words, and whose right hand is a right hand of falsehood." Greetings and salutations. I am back. Andy White here, and on Open Up the Doors on Faith FM. Welcome back to the 11 o'clock hour, second hour of today's broadcast. I am streaming live once again for the second hour over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page. Got so many different things going on. YouTube, Rumble. I almost forgot what I was streaming on. I am streaming on Facebook. Go on over there if you'd like to join in the conversation there. Let me know where you're watching from. The Open Up the Doors Facebook page. That would be at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments regarding anything I shared in the first hour or anything else that's on your mind. I'll open it up to bunny trails. I got a stack of stuff here I'd like to get to, but I always prefer checking in with the audience over anything I have, prepared anyway, because you're what it's about. I informing you, helping you, keeping you informed, keeping you with resources, keeping you with just helping to encourage you and edify you and build you up in all manners of our Christian walk and faith. So anyway, 631-725-2069 if you would like to be part of the broadcast. I'm going to pick up a little bit where I left off in the first hour for continuity's sake. I couldn't get to everything in the first hour, which I didn't expect to, really. But last week I talked about the persecution of the Nigerian Christians that, of course, is being perpetrated by facets of the Islamic State, different facets, whether it be Boko Haram or other jihadist groups, the Fulanis in particular, in Nigeria. And I've been talking about the Nigerian persecution for a good 7 years, 7 years. Would update it every once in a while. The first time I mentioned it was back in 2017 or 18, something like that. And for the longest time, I was like crying out, why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody talking about this? Outside of a few missionary groups that were, which is how I found out about it, of course, particularly a missionary group called Open Doors. Again, no relationship to this broadcast. Now it's almost on front page news now. Not so much with the mainstream media, but the conservative media, Christian media, to the point where I shared last week how even Bill Maher is now commenting on why nobody's doing anything about it. So it's hitting the mainstream psyche, so to speak. And then President Trump came out a week or two ago and said that if the Nigerian government didn't step up and step to the plate and stop the slaughter of the minorities, and particularly the Christians in Nigeria, that, to quote Donald Trump in his Trumpian way, he said, we would go in guns a-blazing. That is a quote. That's a Trumpian quote. We will go in guns a-blazing and stop it ourselves. Which, again, I did mention this last week, by way of UN Charter, that would be legal. If there's an admitted genocide going on, the UN can step in through its members to stop it. So Trump wasn't just being a cowboy and saying it, but he was sending a signal, which has been welcomed. Trust me, has been welcomed by the Nigerian church. Nigerian Christian pastors are like, please come, send the cavalry in. We need help. Now, I'm saying all that to update this a little bit because, again, the theme of today is lying, obfuscation, taqiyya, one of the principles of Islamic warfare, one of the principles to advance the cause of Islam, taqiyya. And when Trump started bringing to the forefront the persecution in Nigeria, the Nigerian president came out and said, there is no persecution in Nigeria. There are no Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria. Ignore all those videos you're seeing for the last 10 years. Ignore all that data and all that reporting from people on the ground. Ignore all that. That's all fabricated lies. Now, the former president of Nigeria supported the Fulanis and didn't do anything about it. And now the new president, whom I do not know his name, I did not write his name down, just what he was saying in the article. I don't want to really get in. I actually have the article here, but I don't want to get into that too much. He's just calling it, it's fake. The leader of Nigeria is just calling it fake news and Israeli propaganda. That's what he said. He said it's fake news put out by Israel. Everything's always Israel's fault because they want to obfuscate from the real genocide that's going on in Gaza. Well, no, there is no real genocide going on in Gaza. That is an actual war, and everything being done there is being done there as things happen in war. But there is a genocide going on against innocent civilians, Christians in particular, in Nigeria. He denied it and all that. I'm setting the table for this because after he denied it was even existing, ISIS turns around in their newsletter. Yes, ISIS has a newsletter, Al-Naba. They've had it for actually, it's probably renamed. I remember during the days of the Caliphate, under al-Baghdadi, that they had a magazine. ISIS had a magazine. I think it was a different name then. But either way, they have a magazine. They have a newsletter out now called Al-Naba, ISIS's newsletter, and ISIS, through their I don't want to say their proxies, through their adherents, Boko Haram, back in the day, did pledge allegiance to the caliphate, did pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. just like this guy in Syria did, by the way. And so they are part of the Islamic State. They're trying to establish a caliphate. And they came out and admitted in their newsletter just last week, they boldly admitted to a deliberate genocide against Christians in Africa. And they framed the U.S. protection efforts as anti-Islamic and warning of prolonged wars if Trump intervenes militarily. The article in the ISIS newsletter mocked Trump's threats to intervene. And the jihadists stated that defending the Christians was, quote, an act of hatred against Islam. Well, you know what? I do hate Islam. I don't hate Muslims. Got to be clear. God loves Muslims. I love Muslims. Muslims need Jesus. Muslims need Jesus as much as my children need Jesus. We don't hate Muslims, but I absolutely do hate Islam because it's a counterfeit, bogus, hellish, demonic deception. That's why I hate it. So I want to be clear. I don't hate Muslims. I'll share the gospel with Muslims. I'll feed them. I would sit down. And have a great conversation if they wanted. In fact, I have. I have. It's not something I'm just hypothesizing about. They need Jesus, and Jesus loves them. But Islam as a supremacist, political, theocratic lie from the pit of hell. Yeah, no, I hate that. So when they say it's an act of hatred against Islam, now I know they don't mean it that way. They think it's Islamophobic. They think it's racist. Although Islam's not a race, it's an ideology. You're a racist. No. There are Asians that are Muslims. There are whites that are Muslims. There are blacks that are Muslims. Islam is not a race. That's number one. It's an ideology. But of course, they're calling it. If we defend our brothers in the Lord, they're regarding it as an act of hatred against Islam, and warns. At least they got a little bit of smarts here. The newsletter warned the jihadist fighters not to underestimate U.S. forces. Well, I'm glad they got that warning out. But having said that, they are boasting that any U.S. involvement would drag America into endless wars. And here's the quote. Again, the quote that caught my attention. They would drag America into endless wars from Damascus to Africa. Now, why would they even mention Damascus? Boko Haram, this isn't Nigeria. Nigeria is like way, way, way over. If my geography serves me right, Nigeria is on the western coast of Africa. It's nowhere near Damascus. So why are they pointing to Damascus as some kind of, parameter? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to venture an educated guess because they're seeing who's in control of Syria now, a disciple of their former leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. I'm just guessing on that one. But either way, they're mocking it. They're basically saying, come at it, and we're going to drag you into a war clear across the African continent, right up into Damascus. Now, quite frankly, you might say that's a lot of saber rattling and haughtiness and pride. It's probably all of the above, but I've been feeling in my heart now. I think I've shared this. I think I shared this a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember if I did or I didn't. But I have a foreboding, if I could use that word, in my spirit, that the world is heading towards a Islamic war. Now they've been at war with the West since Muhammad. Jihad is an ongoing thing until they've taken over the world. It's a supremacist, imperialistic ideology. But what I mean by that is not just a jihad or an Islamic war in concept. The way I see things coming together, the way I see Europe falling, and the infiltration of America, and then statements like this, and Trump saying we're going to go into Nigeria and wipe out these jihadists. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not putting a "thus saith the Lord" on this at all. I'm just telling you what I'm feeling in my gut and in my spiritual sense, if you will. I think we are heading towards an Islamic war, Islam against the West, because it's in their DNA. It's what they've been preparing for 1,400 years, really. So this is all really, in my estimation and evaluation of things, this is very something I'm watching very closely. Because having said that, this is a good segue for me to get into. They're saying that if Trump attacks their forces in Nigeria, they're gonna be dragged into a war from Africa right up to Damascus. Well, perfect time to get into this. One of the things that Donald Trump discussed with Ahmed Sharaa, al-Sharaa, this past weekend, this has been in the newspapers, is that the United States is in negotiations with Damascus and preparing to establish a military base in Damascus, or just outside of Damascus. Now that's eye-opening. To me, that's almost like a flipping of the script. I don't know if anybody saw this coming, but they're talking about establishing a military presence at the Damascus Air Force Base to help facilitate the signing of a security agreement that Washington is mediating between Syria and Israel. This was reported in by the Reuters news agency. The American plans, I should say, for a presence in the Syrian capital, which have not been previously reported, this came out a few days ago, would mark a sign of Syria's strategic realignment with the U.S. following last year's fall of longtime leader Bashar al-Assad, who was an ally of Iran. Again, I'm just reading out of the Reuters report. And Trump has expressed hope that Syria will join other Arab countries that have normalized ties with Israel under the so-called Abraham Accords. And a Syrian official stated earlier this year that Syria expects to finalize security and military agreements with Israel by the end of 2025. Now, that's kind of gone back and forth. When those reports first came out, that there were secret meetings being held through high Israeli officials meeting with Sharaa in Damascus. That happened earlier this year. But then when that was starting to be reported, people started denying it, and then Sharaa said, well, they're not gonna enter into any agreements with Israel unless, A, B, C, D, and E were committed to, which those things would be probably very highly unlikely. But there is this basic going back and forth, regarding building these peace agreements, these regional peace agreements. And again, in the natural, it all makes sense. This is what I talked about earlier in the first block about even the military guys understanding pragmatic diplomacy. Now, if you want to put this all in the bucket of pragmatic diplomacy, that's okay. But scripturally, God works all of these things out according to the purpose and the counsel of his will. So this is why I bring these up all the time. This is why I some people here, and especially in our country, who are so disengaged from this kind of stuff, and it's all political, blah 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 blah. Why are you getting into this? It doesn't affect my life. I just humbly disagree with you. if you have a biblical worldview, if you have a biblical mindset, if you're looking for the day of the Lord's return, all these things are being put in place to bring forth that ultimate culmination of God's eschatological plan. That's what makes this important to know, to hear. As I share so many times, one of the foundations of this broadcast that has sustained me is when I hear people coming up to me from various churches, all kinds of different churches, saying, "You're talking about things I don't hear in my church. My pastor doesn't talk about these things." And that's not to impugn them at all. I understand pastoring. I pastored for 10 years. I understand there's a whole different kind of focus, so I get it. I think that's why God has raised up platforms such as this. Somebody mentioned the other day, if I watch a guy named what's his name? Stackleback. I can't remember his first name. Eric Stackleback. And I said, as a matter of fact, I do watch Stackleback every once in a while on YouTube. I like him. We do a lot of the same stuff. And it's not like I'm getting my material from Stackleback. Not at all. I'll be speaking about something like what I'm speaking on today. 3 days from now, I'll see a video, and there's Stackleback talking about exactly what I was talking about, independently of me listening to him. And I know he's probably never heard of me. No doubt about that. But my point is this: God is raising up platforms here and there that are focusing and talking about these issues. Watchmen on the wall, if I could use that phrase, that are looking at things and evaluating things and saying, we need to be aware of these things. Even if you don't feel like it's affecting your own personal life directly. When wars break out, when the proverbial poop hits the fan, you need to be ready, brothers and sisters. You need to be ready. You need to understand the times and the seasons that we are living in. I'm glancing over at my stream. I haven't really looked at it for the last couple of minutes as I got into my own stream of consciousness here. I just saw something here, a couple of things that attracted me. For people not familiar with Mossab Hassan Youssef, they should be. Yeah, I agree with that, Brother Fred. I watch a bunch of his stuff. He's the son of this guy, Mossab Hassan Youssef, is the son of the founder of Hamas. He's a Christian now. He got saved. And go on YouTube and look at this guy's stuff. This is like, he intricately knows how Islam works because he was raised in it. His father was a leader in Hamas, the founder of Hamas. Brother Fred, you're very prolific here on the stream, but I got another one that I like. It's both pragmatic and prophetic. Yes, I like that verbiage, Fred. That's exactly what it is. In the natural, it's pragmatic. We get that. Absolutely true. But more so than that, more importantly than that, it is prophetic. Only the genius of God and his sovereignty could orchestrate such circumstances now and in the future to fulfill his purposes. That's an excellent comment there, Fred. I like that. I agree with that 100%. 100%. Brother Russ bringing up something that David Wilkerson said years ago about New York being in flames. Yeah, I don't know what's going to bring that about. Some people thought it was 9/11, but even David said that wasn't it. But yep. All these things are converging and working together. I probably should go to a break. I've been bloviating here for almost a half hour since the show, second hour started. That would be a great time to call in if you want to throw in your 2 cents. 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. Great time to call in while the song is going over the air. Here's a song called I Remember the Days.
I remember the days.
The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3. Napegan, WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. Just want to make mention of another announcement here Friends of mine are having a Bless Our Vets Thanksgiving dinner fundraiser this coming Sunday, November 16th, from 2 to 7 at the Jesus is Lord Church in Holtzville. That would be 341 Long Island Avenue, Holtzville. 341 Long Island Avenue, Holtzville. You need to RSVP to 631-619-6100. 631-619-6100 to RSVP. All right, the phone's ringing. I need to pick it up. Hello? I know. I saw that. That's why I just said hello. I knew who it was. Hold on. I'll put you in the system. Hold on. All right, Brother Russ, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Can you talk a little louder?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Let me check my phone. Hang on. Yeah. Okay. And
So what's on your heart?
ma'am, Danny, there. I understand a greater perspective is this is not good. What has just happened for New York, but I seen an article. I was thinking about this the other day, and then I seen an article I thought was kind of confirming it. What kind of real power does he have as, if you will, as mayor of New York? I mean, he's got to continue to be funded, and that very well might happen through other means for him. But in general, as mayor, there are some inroads certainly that have been made, and I'm sure, he will continue to, but how much power does he really have as mayor?
Legislatively, like for his promises, I mean, the free bus fare is already blown up. That's not going to happen. Hochul said, and the MTA said. Legislatively, he's not going to be able to do half the stuff he wants to, but that's not even almost the point. Ideologically, he can, because all the Islamists are reckoning it a major coup, if you will, a prize, and he's going to be what he can't do legislatively. He can still do through policies as far as advancing the cause of Allah. You're going to see him crack down. He wants to do the divestment boycott and sanction against Israel. Now he could do that citywide simply by not purchasing and canceling contracts and canceling trade with Israel. I believe that he could do something like that. I believe that's under his jurisdiction to do. I might be wrong on that, but I think so. But I think the thing is more of the symbolism that it will bring, and the sense of empowerment that it will bring into the jihadist community more than
Islamic narrative.
Yes, exactly. And you're gonna as people, to whatever degree he can implement his economic policies. People are leaving New York. I'm reading every day now businesses that were planning on expanding, and they're not going to expand in New York, and they're going to even leave New York. People are already getting out of the city. So here's what's going to happen. I think, not a prophetic word here, but anybody with any kind of rationality, normalcy is going to leave the city, and then it's going to be handed over to really sycophants of socialism, Marxism, and an insurgency, an influx of Islamists. That's like
a very fair narrative there.
And that's what's going to cause. This past election across the country, 45 Muslims were elected into various offices around the country. And as I've shared,
that's a bit outstanding.
As I've shared, they've got a game plan. It's not just a coincidence. It's not something that's just randomly happening. the Islamic organizations that I've been naming for a while now in this broadcast. The umbrella group is CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, but they've got hundreds of other organizations under the banner of CARE, and they are very, very much coordinating strategically around the country to bring in and to get elected. I've said this many, many times the past few weeks. They are using our system against us. They are using our system to bring in their people, to bring in those who are Islamists, to bring in those who support Sharia law, and they want to get them ultimately elected to Congress. Okay? Now you don't have to be a majority in Congress. You just got to be the squeakiest wheel. We just went through 41 days of a shutdown because of the minority, because Schumer shut down the government. So you remember in Nazi Germany, only during World War II, only 10% of Germans were registered with the Nazi Party. People don't seem to understand that. It doesn't take a majority per se. It takes a very, very committed and militant minority. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, as they say.
Mm-hmm. While we're on the subject, maybe it's too broad of a question, but does our U.S. government, does President Trump have any power over any of this?
What do you mean?
Well,
I don't understand the question.
So, Mamdani and his religious rule is on the rise in New York, hypothetically. I think Trump has come out and said, we'll arrest him for this and arrest him for that.
They can only arrest him if he's actually broken laws, and if they can find the laws that he's broken,
Right.
like I said a couple of weeks ago, there's evidence that he lied on his naturalization papers, so which is a deportable offense. It's a felony. But I also said I doubt they're going to pursue it, because if they pursue it and they deport him, there's going to be massive rioting in New York City, without a doubt. So I don't think they're going to pursue it. They would legally have the right to pursue it. They would ethically and courageously have the right to pursue it.
Saying, if you will, that understanding Mr. Trump there, if he thinks there's a loophole, that will not cause him to be shy. If he thinks I think he'll go down that road if he has to.
I don't know.
We'll see, right? We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I just.
No, I don't know for sure either. But
because
I wouldn't doubt
the point being is, again, the way I see him. What's the word I want to look for? Buddying up. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Let's go back to the pragmatic diplomacy of working with Erdogan and working with al-Sharaa and working with Qatar. This is where I keep saying, for all of Trump's intelligence and for all of what, brother, if we're discussing this openly on the radio, you know that our intelligence services know this. I'm not sharing some great revelation that they don't know. They know about the foreign money. They know about the corruption. They know they've got experts within the administration telling them what Islam is like. They can't be that stupid. They can't be. So that raises the question, then why are you doing what you're doing? Or are you just saying, well, in this case, they won't act this way. In this case, they may be using taqiyya, but I'm going to believe them right now. Is it naivety? Is it wishful thinking? Is it?
That's a very good question, because I don't think it's naivety on Trump's part. He's got to know. It's blatant.
You would think so, for sure.
Who these men are is blatant. So.
And yet he gives them places of prominence and importance at the table,
which is mind-blowing. I get it.
So
I get it.
To me, it's a conundrum. To me, it's a paradox. And to me, it's one of those things where, okay, we got to sit back and watch and wait and see how this plays out.
It appears to be unanswerable right now. Yeah, no doubt.
But my gut instinct tells me that it's not going to play out well, especially not only my gut instinct, but from how I see the scriptures. It's like Brother Fred said in the comment on Facebook. It's both pragmatic and prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
God works all things. Ephesians 1:11. God works all things according to the counsel of his purpose and his will.
Yep. Amen. All right, Ant. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Russ. Thanks for listening.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. If you'd like to follow up that call, the phone line is now open. I'm reading through these comments again. Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts. A lot of moving parts to the whole eschatological schemata, to say the least. I've always said that. And sometimes people kind of focus in on one area or one aspect, and they make that one thing the whole thing. But no. There's so many things that are converging together. There's so many things in the eschatological schemata that are threads being woven into a tapestry that we don't see the full picture. Well, in one way we do. In one way, God's given us the full picture in a very broad sense in the Word, but how all the intricacies come about, we don't really see. So, all right, hold on. I'm getting a phone call here. Faith FM, Andy speaking. Okay. Let's see. I'll give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Is that going to be good enough? Okay. Go ahead. Hold on. All right, Wayne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, man. I'm here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a different counsel I'm getting from the scriptures, and than the view you're offering. And basically, there's always going to be evildoers and bad guys in the world. The wicked, they always seem to have the money, the talent, the numbers, the publicity. And the righteous, they always seem to be few, poor, and unknown. And it always seems to be that the prayerless Christian is the one who always misreads the signs of the times, on the geopolitical landscape. But that's exactly what the Spirit of God warns us against. We have an option as a Christian to look out calmly upon the world. Or better yet, we can look down upon the world and see the world from where Christ is seated, and we're seated with him in the heavenlies. In other words, it's letting the God of Jacob be our elevated place. And if we do that, we will see the anti-Semitic spreading himself, as the scriptures declare, like a bay tree. But it's only for a moment. He passes away. I looked for him. I couldn't find him, says David. But the salvation of the righteous Jew has always been of the Lord. And the Lord has always been the strength of the righteous Jew in the time of trouble. And this knowledge should free us from any kind of concern or worry about caliphates, Korans, and all those issues you were talking about. We don't have to keep ourselves awake about this stuff, because God seems to in his scripture gives us a better offer, if you will.
Let me interject right there. You said at the top of the call that you see it a little bit differently. Actually, everything you've said right up to this point, I actually agree with you 100%. But the only thing I want to interject here is it's not so much a fear of, it's informing. It's being informed of, so that Jesus told us to understand the signs of the times.
I know, but it seems to go from there into like a concern to like a fear element. We should be concerned about this, and this is, watch out for the caliphates and the Muslims and the Quran, because they're coming to take you away. But I don't see that counsel at all in this psalm. I mean, I see just the opposite.
Well, yeah, you're reading out of Psalm 37, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. Psalm 37. Do not fret because of evildoers. Yeah, I absolutely do agree with that. I think maybe the only nuance of any daylight that we have there is that it's not fear driven or fear motivated. That's not. It's informational. It's to understand the times so that we need to prepare spiritually. We need to
prepare how? How prepare how?
Number one, by preaching the gospel. Number one, explaining to people. So many people, Wayne, they don't know what's going on, and they wonder about it, and they want. Why should
I tell them about what's going on when they have the option of looking calmly out on the world and looking down on the world and getting heavenly perspective?
Why did Jesus give the Olivet Discourse and talk about all of those fearful signs? Well, I'm saying the same thing. It's not either or. Jesus spoke about all these fearful things, men's hearts failing them for fear. So it's not a question of producing fear. It's a question of warning to stay alert and to understand the times, so that we are prepared spiritually. So that, what did Jesus say? So that day does not come upon you unexpectedly, because many will fall away. So we preach the gospel. We preach the whole counsel of God.
That's true. And Psalm 37 is part of that counsel. And
I love Psalm 37, so I knew what you were reading. It's one of my favorite psalms.
Great psalm. He says four times he says in the psalm the anti-Semitic is going to be cut off. 3 times he tells the Jews to wait. 5 times he tells the Jews that they're going to inherit the land. And of course,
it's not specifically the Jews. It's the people of God. It's the righteous. But I get what you're saying.
Well, the Jews. Right. It was originally. The song was originally penned to the Jews.
Right. Right.
Okay. And they're going to inherit the land. But it's for us to understand, to calmly look out in the world, realize the salvation of the righteous Jew or the righteous Christian under a covenant is of the Lord, and that His strength. And God is their strength in the time of trouble, and we don't have to stay awake at night about Qurans and caliphate.
Trust me, brother. I do not stay awake at night. I sleep like a rock.
And why do you offer this information, though? Why do you offer your audience this information? What's their response supposed to be?
Because, as someone just said on Facebook, ignorance is not a gift of the Spirit. We ought to know these things. The scriptures, you just agreed with me a second ago, the scriptures tell us to understand the times. The people of Issachar had an understanding of the times and knew what to do. If we don't have an understanding of the times, then we won't know what to do. And if we don't, let me finish. If we don't understand the radical differences between the religion of a false prophet and the truth of Jesus Christ, then people will embrace, we're all the same. We worship the same God. That's just another religion. That's just and they fall into the trap of the lie. Because they receive not the love of the truth, God hands them over to believe the lie. So therefore, we've got to be purveyors of the truth. And Jesus warned against false teachings and false prophets, and he said to beware of them. So what's the point of the information? To tell you to beware of false teachers and false teachings and false prophets. That doesn't negate Psalm 37. That says, but in the midst of all that, I don't fret. I know how it ends. We win in the end. This is all part of God's game plan. That's our hope. That's where we get our solace. Our solace isn't our serenity. Let me use that word, because Psalm 37 is kind of almost talking about a serenity, so to speak. Our serenity is not found by hiding our heads in the sand. Our serenity is found in understanding the times, but knowing that God's purposes are being brought out in the midst of them, so that we can rest and sleep at night. That's where I agree. That's where I agree with you. I don't think it's either or.
We can calmly take the psalmist's advice. We can look out calmly on the world, and we can look down upon the world and realize we're seated with Christ, and God of Jacob's our elevated place. We're not to be concerned about the anti-Semitic or caliphates or Qurans or anything like that. We can sleep easy, rest easy.
Yeah. Tell that to the people the way you're going at it. And again, I understand.
Well, I want to tell it to Christians. I want to tell
what
it to
about
Christians.
should the Christians in Nigeria who are being beheaded by the jihadists, should they not be concerned about what's going on in their communities and in their families?
Well, this psalm was addressed to them. Actually, you bring them up. This psalm, they can take this psalm to heart.
I agree, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to watch out for their families and take care of them. And when they see the hordes of Islam coming on the horizon, prepare themselves one way or the other. I don't think it's an either or. Is my point. I'm agreeing with what you're saying, really. But I gotta go. I gave you more than 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm running out of time.
All right. Yeah, I don't want to intrude.
So go ahead. Go ahead, Brain. Thanks for calling in. I thank you for your perspective. God bless. Bye bye. All righty. We do have. Let me see here. We do have a couple of more minutes, and the phone is ringing again. Let me see here. Faith FM, Andy speaking. Hey, Bob from Riverhead. Hold on. I'll put you through the system. You know the routine. Hold on. Go ahead, Bob. You're on.
Well, I know we don't got much time, and unfortunately, I didn't catch into the second hour here. But when I did hear you mention it a little earlier, I wanted to remind us that, if they don't pursue Mandami with this lying on his application, that reminds me of compromise. And that always puts us into trouble. And I can guarantee you, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would be pressing these guys to the mat.
Oh, no doubt about it. They did it to Trump. They made stuff up regarding Trump, and they indicted him on made-up stuff.
So I think they should. If he's lied on that application and it's deportable, deport him.
Oh, I think.
Don't be damned what happens in the city.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think they should too. I'm just questioning whether they will because of weighing out the ramifications of doing it. I'm questioning whether they got the courage to put it in a New York frame of mind. Do they have the chutzpah to do it?
Yes. Well, the Republicans during the shutdown were worrying about, well, what happens? What if? No. Just damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. This is a time for courage. This is a time for not playing footsie anymore. The path is clear. Seize the day, right?
Amen. Amen.
I think that if they show weakness, then that's going to be misinterpreted.
Well, I haven't heard any follow up to it, so I don't know if they are still in the process of investigating it, or if it's one of those things they're just sweeping under the rug. I honestly don't know. I don't have the wherewithal to know. I don't have friends in high places, except for the Most High God. But some things He tells me, and some things He doesn't.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard anything about this for a couple of days myself. I heard about it probably 5 or 6 days ago, and then it kind of went silent. And I don't know if it was just another talking point, but that's the problem. The Republicans have a very poor ability for doing messaging. They should be hammering the economy every day. They're not touting their successes. And when they find mistakes, they only voice them once or twice. No, I mean, if you look at what the other side does, they'll pick on the smallest thing and magnify it by hammering it constantly until it becomes a mantra. Now, I'm not saying that we should act like the enemy, but it's important to know how to bring out your messaging. I mean, I heard one of these dummies the other day talking about the Democratic brand. Oh, the shutdown harm was if we don't keep it going, it's going to harm the Democratic brand. I mean, what does that mean? Well, so they're sloganeers with topics and things that don't even make sense. But in that regard, there's something to be learned, and that's in the messaging. And the thing is, you got to put it in people's mind, because they need to pay attention. And that's what they're not, that's where they're bad on their messaging. Every day they should be talking about the advances of the economy and what's going on and how things are getting better.
Well, in all fairness, I think Caroline Leavitt does try to do that in her press conferences, but it gets drowned out by all the other noise. And you are right. The left, the Democrats, they have they know how to bang the pot louder.
Yes, and they have the advantage of the media. I mean, what do we got? We got guys like you got Leavitt. Once in a while, maybe Fox will be on the right course with something. So, yeah, the platforms to bring forth the messages aren't as great. But all the more reason to bang the pot more loudly when you only have one pot.
Yeah.
So, again, I just, compromise came to mind. We know biblically compromise never worked out well. So, why are we going to play footsie with that? Don't.
Well, again, it falls into the realm of pragmatics, and a lot of people, especially in politics, they're more worried about pragmatism than they are integrity. That's been an ongoing issue for, I think, time immemorial when it comes to politics.
Well, I can offer you this. If you look at the Eastern religions, a lot of what they talk about has got a lot of good manly wisdom. It's practical knowledge. But where does that lead you eventually, right? So you got to draw a line in the sand between the usefulness of practical wisdom and practical applications and where they can eventually take you. It's almost like the difference between military strategy and tactics. Tactics are the advantage of what's going on in the battlefield. And you could win an engagement with proper tactics, but strategically you could be horrible and lose the war. And that's kind of the parallel that's going on here.
Yeah. Well, Bob, thanks for calling in. I'm down to my last few seconds here. So,
well, thanks. As always, Andy, thanks, man.
Thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it very much.
Okay. God bless.
Have a great day. God bless. Yeah, we're down to like less than a minute, so I want to get ready to close this up here. One thing that Brother Fred bringing up in the Facebook stream as Bob was speaking is, and I think we all agree with that, is that the Republicans are very poor in their messaging in general. But then Fred brings up relatively few people are aware of what's said in these press conferences. But that's kind of an oxymoron to begin with, because a press conference is to give to the press the things they need to be reporting on, but then they don't report on them. In the meantime, the reporting of this broadcast is now coming to a close because I am out of time. But in the meantime, watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love, my friends. Keep it right here on Faith FM. And I'll be back next week with this very special Thanksgiving edition of Open Up the Doors.